beloved chosen one. Heaven saw your courage today. Not the kind of courage the world celebrates with noise, applause, and bright lights, but the kind that rises quietly when your heart is tired, when the pressure is heavy, when the attack feels personal, and when no one around you fully understands how much strength it takes for you to keep standing. You made it through a moment that was designed to drain you. You kept your spirit from collapsing under a weight that would have broken many people. You kept moving while carrying questions you could not answer and burdens you could not explain. That is why this moment matters more than you realize, because what happened today was not small in the eyes of heaven. There are days when your bravery does not look dramatic. It looks like restraint when you could have reacted. It looks like silence when you could have argued. It looks like faith when your emotions begged you to quit. It looks like choosing peace when confusion surrounded you from every side. It looks like getting up again after disappointment whispered that nothing would ever change. This is the courage heaven notices. This is the kind of strength that does not always make sense on the outside, but shakes the spiritual world with force on the inside. You may have felt ordinary while living through it, but it was not ordinary at all. You were being watched by the one who sees every hidden battle. What tried to press against you today was not random. The resistance, the heaviness, the strange tension, the emotional pull, the pressure to doubt yourself, the temptation to speak out of pain, the urge to retreat into fear, all of it carried an assignment. The attack wanted you to surrender your clarity. It wanted you to make a permanent decision in a temporary storm. It wanted you to believe that your exhaustion meant abandonment. But heaven is saying no. Your weariness is not proof that you are forgotten. Your struggle is not proof that you have lost favor. In many cases, the pressure increases precisely because your life carries weight, meaning, and consequence. You are not weak because you felt the battle. You are not failing because you felt the strain. Even seasoned warriors feel the force of impact when the arrows begin to fly. The difference is that you did not let the impact define you. You did not hand over your identity to the attack. You did not let one difficult moment rewrite what God has spoken over your life. That is courage. Courage is not the absence of shaking. Courage is what you do while your hands are still trembling. Courage is the holy decision to remain aligned even when your feelings are loud and your answers are few. There is something powerful about the fact that you are still here, still listening, still reaching, still opening your spirit to truth after everything that has tried to silence you. You could have hardened your heart. You could have let bitterness become your shield. You could have told yourself that it was safer not to hope, safer not to trust, safer not to expect anything good. Yet something in you kept leaning toward the light. That matters. Heaven responds to that kind of posture. The Lord is not indifferent to your effort. He is not distant from your groaning. He is not unmoved by your private obedience. Some of you have been carrying an invisible war for so long that survival has started to feel normal. You have learned how to smile while wrestling. You have learned how to function while grieving. You have learned how to speak calmly while your soul searches for relief. But today marked something important. Today, your courage answered the attack before your mouth ever did. Your refusal to collapse became a testimony. Your decision to endure became a declaration. Without fully seeing it, you sent a signal through the spiritual realm that said, I am still standing, I am still covered, and I am still under divine instruction. That is why you must not minimize this day. There are turning points that look quiet while they are happening. There are victories that arrive without fanfare. There are moments when the enemy expects panic and instead finds perseverance. Those are holy moments. Those are moments when heaven leans close. Those are moments when strength is transferred in ways your natural mind may not yet understand. You thought you were simply trying to make it through the day. But heaven saw something far deeper. Heaven saw loyalty under pressure. Heaven saw faithfulness in discomfort. Heaven saw courage without witnesses. So breathe again. Let your soul settle into this truth. You are not overlooked. You are not fighting alone. You are not imagining the battle, and you are not imagining the help that has been surrounding you, even when you could not feel it clearly. The attack was real, but so was the covering. The pressure was real, but so was the grace. The challenge was real, but so was the sustaining hand of God holding you steady through every unseen second. Type 777 in the comments as a sign that you know heaven is still writing your story. And now, as this first layer of truth settles over your spirit, understand what it means. If heaven saw your courage today, then today was not a wasted day. If heaven marked your endurance, then your pain did not vanish into emptiness. If heaven recorded your stand, then something is already shifting because of it. This is not the end of the pressure, but it is the beginning of revealed victory. You have crossed through a moment that was meant to stop you, and instead of being erased, you were strengthened inside it. That is why peace is beginning to rise even now. That is why your spirit is being reminded that your story is not one of defeat, but of holy endurance that will soon speak louder than every attack that came against you. What makes this even more powerful is that the attack did not only come to create discomfort. It came to convince you that your courage meant nothing, that your quiet obedience would go unnoticed, and that your effort to stay steady would disappear into silence. But heaven does not measure your day the way people do. Heaven reads the weight of your choices. Heaven sees the battle behind your composure. Heaven understands the cost of holding your peace when your heart is under pressure. That is why the attack that came near you today has already begun to lose its voice. It expected you to break agreement with your purpose. But instead, you kept your spirit facing the light. There is a reason so much resistance gathers around people who are marked for something greater. Darkness does not waste energy where there is no threat to its plans. The very fact that the pressure increased is evidence that your life carries influence beyond what you can fully see right now. Your endurance is not small. Your patience is not passive. Your decision not to give your soul over to panic is not weakness. It is warfare. It is strength under control. It is trust choosing to breathe in a room full of tension. And that kind of trust unsettles every force that hoped to pull you out of position. This is where the story of David begins to move quietly beside your own. Before he ever wore a crown, before songs were sung about him, before anyone looked at him as a leader, he faced the kind of hidden formation that many chosen ones know well. He was overlooked by people, but not by God. He was left in fields where nobody celebrated his discipline. Yet those lonely places were not empty. They were training grounds. They were the places where courage learned to stand without applause. They were the places where heaven watched the private version of his faithfulness long before the public version of his destiny appeared. You know something about that field. You know what it feels like to keep showing up without recognition. You know what it means to carry oil on your life while your surroundings still treat you as though you are ordinary. David learned songs in isolation, but he also learned war there. A lion came, a bear came. Threats rose against what had been entrusted to him, and each time he stood up before the bigger stage ever arrived. That is the part many people miss. The battle in front of Goliath did not begin in front of a crowd. It began in hidden moments where courage was formed in secret. In the same way, what you face today may look small to others, but it belongs to a larger preparation. Heaven is not only helping you survive pressure, Heaven is shaping you through it. That is why the enemy miscalculated. It thought this present attack would erase your confidence, but it did not understand what your history with God has already built in you. It did not understand how many nights you have already cried and still chosen faith. It did not understand how many disappointments you have already outlived. It did not understand that private battles have been teaching you how to remain anchored. Just as David could speak with unusual calm when a giant threatened the people of God, there is a steadiness being formed in you that does not come from personality. It comes from memory. It comes from knowing that the same God who kept you before is keeping you now. And that is why this day matters so much. You were not merely attacked. You were measured in the middle of the attack, and your spirit did not give away its inheritance. You did not answer darkness by becoming dark. You did not answer confusion by worshiping confusion. Even where you felt shaken, there was still something deeper in you refusing to bow. That deeper place is where divine strength keeps speaking. That deeper place is where heaven keeps reminding you that this fight is not proof of failure. It is proof that something valuable is being protected. As you let this truth settle, stay close to this message in a simple and sincere way. Like, share, and subscribe if it is helping your spirit stay aligned. And if you feel led to support this work, there is a donation link in the description. Let your response be gentle but intentional, because every act of agreement matters when your soul is being strengthened. You are stepping into the same pattern heaven has always honored. First the hidden field, then the revealed victory. First the private pressure, then the public confirmation. First the test of courage where nobody claps. Then the moment when what was built in secret can no longer be denied. David did not become chosen when people noticed him. He was already chosen when heaven watched him in silence. In the same way, your worth is not waiting for human recognition. Your authority is not waiting for public approval. That what God marks, God sustains. So do not despise this stretch of the journey. The unseen day can still be a sacred day. The exhausting day can still be a victorious day. The painful day can still be a day where power changes hands. The attack came with force, but it did not come with final authority. Heaven saw your courage, and that means this battle is already being interpreted from above, not merely from below. What tried to weaken you is becoming evidence that you have been carried. What tried to silence you is becoming proof that your spirit is still alive, still responsive, still guarded by a hand stronger than the pressure pressing in around you. And this is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Because the pressure that rose against you was never only about one difficult day, one heavy emotion, or one moment of fatigue. It was reaching for something deeper. It was reaching for your perception. It was trying to cloud the way you see yourself, the way you hear God, and the way you interpret the season you are in. That is why this battle has felt so intense, when the enemy cannot immediately remove a chosen person from their path. It often tries to wear down their vision. It tries to make you question what heaven already made clear. It tries to make you feel small in a season where God is actually enlarging your inner strength. But what happened today proved something important. You did not surrender your sight. You may have felt pressure, but you did not let the pressure become prophecy. You may have felt fear knock at the door, but you did not hand it the keys. You may have felt weary, but your spirit did not agree to become empty. That matters more than you know, because many of the greatest turning points do not begin when circumstances change. They begin when your inner world refuses to bow before outer chaos. This is why David remains such a living thread in this message. When he finally stood before Goliath, the giant was not the first voice trying to define him. His own brother spoke with contempt. Saul questioned his readiness. The atmosphere itself suggested that he was too small, too young, too untested for the moment before him. Yet David had already learned something in secret places that made public intimidation less powerful. He had learned that what God has formed in you privately can silence what stands against you publicly. He had learned that courage does not always begin with a shout. Sometimes it begins with memory. Sometimes it begins with remembering who carried you when no one else saw the battle. You are standing in a similar lesson now. The attack has been loud, but your history with God is louder. The pressure has been real, but so is the pattern of divine preservation over your life. There were moments before this one when you thought you would not make it, and yet you were sustained. There were seasons when you felt outnumbered by grief, confusion, or delay, and yet you were not abandoned. There were nights when your thoughts were crowded and your spirit felt tired, and still the morning found you breathing, standing, and moving forward. That is not an accident. That is not luck. That is evidence. David did not defeat Goliath by borrowing another man's armor. He won by moving in the grace that had already been tested in his own life. That is a word for you now. You do not need to become someone else to survive this season. You do not need a false version of strength. You do not need borrowed noise. You need clarity. You need alignment. You need to remember what God has already placed within you. The attack loses power when you stop measuring yourself by appearances and return to the truth of what heaven has already spoken. That is why mental and spiritual clarity matter so much in a season like this. When you are under pressure, scattered thoughts can become an opening for discouragement. When your mind is exhausted, even small problems can feel larger than they are. When your focus is fractured, it becomes harder to hear peace, harder to think clearly, harder to stay anchored in what is true. This is one reason many people in intense seasons begin looking for simple supports that help them feel calmer, think more clearly, and regain a sense of inner steadiness during the day. Near the end of this message, I want to mention one option gently and briefly for those who have been feeling mentally drained, foggy, overstretched, or unable to focus. Because for some listeners, the battle is not only emotional or spiritual, it is also showing up as difficulty concentrating, carrying clear thoughts, solving problems, resting deeply, or feeling mentally sharp again after prolonged stress. David knew that the battle is affected by what you carry within. He approached the giant with more than a stone. He approached with formed confidence. He approached with inner coherence. He approached with a heart that had not let fear rewrite his identity. In your own way, that is what God is rebuilding in you now. Not just survival, but steadiness. Not just endurance, but clarity. Not just movement, but directed movement. Heaven is not merely pulling you out of attack. Heaven is restoring your ability to think, discern, and stand with a clearer mind and a quieter spirit. For those who have been wanting extra support in that area, some people have been exploring a digital audio program called the Genius Wave, also known in some places as Genius Song. It is presented as a short daily listening track designed to support focus, creativity, calm, clearer thinking, and a more settled mental state through sound-based brainwave entrainment. It may appeal especially to those who feel mentally scattered, drained by stress, or unable to access the sharpness they once had. If that is something you want to look into, use only the official source listed in the description or pinned comment, and be careful with imitation pages or unofficial copies. And even as you consider practical support, remember this: your deepest victory is not coming from a product. It is coming from the God who has kept you through every unseen field and every towering threat. What strengthens you outwardly can be helpful, but what seals you inwardly is the hand of God. So let your heart remain there, steady and unafraid, because the same Lord who trained you in quiet places is still guiding you now. And the giant in front of you is already smaller than the courage heaven has built within you. And now the deeper truth begins to emerge. The attack did not only fail to destroy you, it exposed its own limits. What pushed against you with such force expected surrender, confusion, and collapse. But instead it ran into a boundary it could not cross. That boundary was not built by your own effort alone. It was the covering of God. It was the mercy of God. It was the unseen command of heaven that said this far and no farther. That is why the darkness around you has already begun to understand something your emotions may still be catching up to. It has lost access to the version of you it thought it could still control. There comes a moment in spiritual warfare when the battle changes tone. At first, it feels like survival. It feels like pressure. It feels like wave after wave trying to wear down your heart. But then, without noise, without spectacle, a shift takes place. The same force that looked so threatening begins to weaken because it is no longer feeding on your agreement. It cannot grow where you refuse to partner with fear. It cannot dominate where your soul stays anchored in truth. It cannot keep the same grip once heaven has declared that your season is turning. That is the moment darkness begins to realize it has already lost more than it expected. This is why some attacks become strangely intense right before they break. They are not always increasing because they are winning. Sometimes they are straining because they are failing. Sometimes the pressure spikes because the enemy senses it is running out of room. Sometimes confusion gets louder because clarity is about to rise. Sometimes opposition becomes more desperate because your spirit is about to step into a steadiness it cannot easily disturb again. You may have interpreted the increased tension as a sign that things were getting worse, but in the spirit it may have been the clearest evidence that a reversal was already underway. Heaven has a way of allowing truth to ripen beneath the surface before it becomes visible in your circumstances. That is what has been happening around you, while you were simply trying to hold on. God was already rearranging what you could not touch. While you were praying with limited words, heaven was answering in ways too deep for immediate sight. While the enemy was trying to convince you that you were trapped in a cycle, the Lord was quietly cutting cords, closing doors, and draining power from what had been resisting you. Not everything God does announces itself at once. Some victories begin in silence so that your faith learns to rest in Him, not in appearances. This is why you must be careful not to judge the outcome of a battle too soon. There are moments when it looks like darkness is still moving freely, when pressure still lingers, when answers still seem delayed, and yet the deciding blow has already been struck in the unseen. A tree may still stand for a moment after its root has been severed. In the same way, some things in your life are already defeated even if their outer form has not fully disappeared yet. Their power is fading, their authority is broken, their future has been interrupted. What remains is not final victory for them. It is only the echo of something that has already begun to fall. That is why peace is becoming so important in this hour. Peace is not denial. Peace is not pretending there was never a battle. Peace is the holy recognition that God is stronger than what came against you. Peace is what rises when your soul stops treating the attack as ultimate. Peace is what returns when you realize that heaven never lost sight of you, never lost hold of you, and never stepped back in indifference while you were being tested. The Lord was present in every hidden second, and the proof of that presence is that you are still standing with your inner life intact. Hold close this promise. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. Those words do not call you into passivity. They call you into trust. They remind you that not every battle is won by striving harder, panicking faster, or speaking louder. Some battles are won when your spirit remains fixed while God moves with sovereign precision. Some battles are won when you stop wrestling for control and let divine authority speak over what has been threatening you. Some battles are won when your stillness becomes agreement with heaven's rule. And this is what darkness misread about you. It thought stillness meant weakness. It thought restraint meant defeat. It thought your refusal to panic meant you had nothing left. But your stillness was not emptiness. It was consecration. It was trust under pressure. It was your spirit choosing not to bow to the atmosphere around you. That kind of stillness is dangerous to every force that depends on your fear to keep itself alive. Once you stop feeding the attack with agreement, it begins to starve. So let your heart understand what has happened. The tables are turning because heaven has stepped into the matter. The intimidation is cracking because it no longer owns the narrative. The thing that tried to define this season is losing the right to speak over it. You are not where you were when this pressure first rose against you. Something holy has strengthened beneath your ribs. Something clear has settled in your mind. Something unshaken has taken root in your soul. And because of that, what once hunted your peace will now begin to retreat from the presence of the God who has been fighting for you all along. Something has changed in you because of what you endured. And even if your surroundings still look familiar, your spirit is not standing in the same place it stood before this battle began. The pressure came expecting to reduce you, but instead it revealed what had already been forming beneath the surface. You did not come through this untouched. You came through this tempered. You came through this carrying a different weight, a different steadiness, and a different level of inner authority. The attack thought it was draining your strength, but heaven was using the resistance to build your response. What tried to crush your voice has only taught your soul how to speak from a deeper place. This is what many people do not understand about spiritual authority. It is not noise. It is not performance. It is not a borrowed tone, a borrowed posture, or a dramatic display that looks powerful on the outside but carries no oil within. True authority is forged where obedience costs something. It grows where faith keeps standing after disappointment. It settles into a person when they have every reason to panic, yet choose alignment instead. That is why what has happened in you matters so much. You are not only recovering from an attack, you are emerging with a clearer awareness of what can no longer control you. There are forces that once disturbed you more easily. There are voices that once could shake your peace more quickly. There are patterns that once could pull your mind into confusion faster than they can now. Why? Because every real battle that you survive with God does not leave you weaker in the end. It leaves you wiser. It leaves you more discerning. It leaves you less impressed by intimidation. It leaves you more aware that not every loud thing carries authority, and not every delay means defeat. Some things only look powerful until a chosen person learns how to stand still and see them clearly. You are learning that fear depends on exaggeration. It grows by presenting shadows as substance. It magnifies threats and minimizes grace. It tells you that one hard season means your whole future is collapsing. It tells you that one attack means your covering is gone. It tells you that one moment of heaviness means you are losing your purpose. But now you are beginning to see with different eyes. You are beginning to notice that what once felt overwhelming does not command the same reaction in you anymore. It still knocks, but it does not own the house. It still speaks, but it does not define the truth. It still circles, but it cannot devour what heaven has marked and preserved. That is part of your upgraded authority. You do not respond the same way because you are not the same person. You have seen too much to go back to old agreements. You have survived too much to let small lies rule your mind. You have been carried through too many hidden fires to believe that this present challenge is greater than the hand that has sustained you all along. Heaven has not merely comforted you. Heaven has instructed you. Heaven has not only protected you, heaven has sharpened you. And the sharpening came through contact, through testing, through moments when your spirit had to choose whether to collapse into fear or rise into truth. That is why your next season cannot be walked the way your last season was. You have outgrown certain reactions. You have outgrown certain dependencies. You have outgrown the need for constant external reassurance before you trust what God has already spoken within. There is a holy maturity coming over you now. It is calmer than panic. It is stronger than emotion. It is quieter than performance. But it is far more dangerous to every force that hoped to keep you spiritually immature. Because once a chosen person understands their authority, chaos loses one of its favorite entry points. You do not need to announce your authority for it to be real. You carry it by how you remain. You carry it by how you discern. You carry it by how you refuse to come into agreement with every fearful thought that passes through the atmosphere. Authority is present when your peace stays rooted while pressure tries to uproot it. Authority is present when your mouth stops repeating defeat and starts aligning with what God has said. Authority is present when your soul remembers that you were never sent into this life defenseless. This is why this promise speaks with such force to your situation right now. But the Lord is faithful, and He will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one. That is not a fragile sentence. It is not soft comfort for weak moments alone. It is a living declaration over the one who has been surrounded, pressed, and tested, yet has not been abandoned. It reminds you that your safety was never built on your own strength. It reminds you that your endurance is being upheld by the faithfulness of God Himself. The attack may be real, but so is the protection. The pressure may rise, but so does the strengthening. The threat may come near, but it does not come alone because the Lord stands between you and what seeks to consume you. So receive what heaven is saying about you in this hour. You are not merely someone who escaped a difficult moment. You are someone who has been entrusted with greater spiritual composure because you stayed in the fight without surrendering your soul. That composure will matter in conversations ahead. It will matter in decisions ahead. It will matter when others around you are shaken and you are called to remain clear. The authority growing in you is not only for your own protection, it is also for your assignment. There are people who will one day draw courage from the peace you learned in private. So stand taller now, not in pride, but in recognition. Let your heart settle into the truth that this battle did not diminish you. It advanced you. It did not erase your voice. It refined it. It did not prove your weakness. It exposed the strength God has been building in secret for longer than you knew. Comment still standing, and let that simple response become your quiet witness that what came against you did not win. You are still here. You are still covered. You are still being strengthened by a faithful God, and what you carry now will speak with greater power in the days ahead. And now you arrive at the place where heaven does not merely tell you that you survived. Heaven tells you to walk like someone whose victory has already been sealed. This is the part many people struggle to receive. Because after a long season of pressure, the soul can become more familiar with guarding itself than with advancing. You learn how to brace. You learn how to endure. You learn how to survive the next wave. But there comes a moment when God begins to whisper something new into your spirit. Not just hold on, not just make it through, Walk forward, lift your head, strengthen your steps. Stop speaking as though the battle still owns the ending. That shift matters because victory is not only something God does around you. It is also something He teaches you to inhabit within you. He teaches you how to carry peace without apology. He teaches you how to move without waiting for every atmosphere to agree with your faith. He teaches you how to speak with calm certainty after chaos has spent itself. The sealed victory of heaven does not always arrive first as visible ease. Sometimes it arrives as unshakable inner knowing. It arrives as a courage that no longer asks fear for permission. It arrives as a quiet authority that says, "I have cried, I have wrestled, I have stood under pressure, and now I know that what God has spoken over me is stronger than what tried to come against me." This is where many chosen people begin to see the fruit of everything they endured. The pain was not meaningless. The delay was not empty. The attack was not the end of the story. Every hidden stand, every private prayer, every restrained reaction, every moment you chose not to collapse into despair, all of it became material in the hands of God. He used it to deepen you. He used it to purify your hearing. He used it to free you from the need to be ruled by appearances. And now the same life that was being pressed is becoming a life that carries witness. You are becoming proof that heaven can keep a person steady in the middle of what should have broken them. So now, before this message closes, let your heart become still in a different way. Not the stillness of exhaustion, but the stillness of surrender. Not the stillness of fear, but the stillness of trust. Let this prayer settle over you naturally, right where you are. Father, thank you for seeing every hidden battle, every silent tear, every moment of courage that no one else understood. Thank you for keeping this beloved soul through pressure they could not fully explain. Thank you for not letting the attack have the final word. Thank you for strengthening what was tired, guarding what was vulnerable, and preserving what darkness wanted to consume. Lord, let your peace settle deeply now. Restore clear thought where there has been confusion. Restore holy strength where there has been weariness. Restore confidence where fear tried to take root. Remind your child that they are covered, they are called, and they are not walking alone. Let every lingering shadow lose its voice. Let every false burden break. Let hope rise again with quiet power. And let this next season be marked not by intimidation, but by steady victory. Clean discernment, deeper faith, and unmistakable evidence of your hand. In Jesus' name, Amen. Now receive that prayer as more than words. Receive it as alignment. Receive it as a moment where your soul stops wrestling long enough to let truth sink all the way in. You do not have to return to the old posture of panic. You do not have to keep introducing yourself to fear as though it still owns access to your future. You can walk differently now. You can think differently now. You can rest differently now. Not because life will never test you again, but because this battle has taught you where your help truly comes from. And as you keep walking with this message, stay connected in a simple and meaningful way. Like, share, and subscribe if this kind of word strengthens your spirit and helps you stay centered in truth. Sometimes one shared message reaches the exact heart that is barely hanging on, and your simple act of passing it along becomes part of someone else's rescue. And if you want to support this work so more messages like this can continue reaching people who need them, there is a donation link in the description. Let it be something you do freely and peacefully, never from pressure, but from genuine agreement with what is feeding your spirit. The most important thing is this: do not leave this moment thinking heaven only comforted you. Heaven confirmed you. Heaven reminded you who you are. Heaven answered the accusation with presence, the pressure with strength, and the attack with limitation. Every force that came to reduce you has already discovered that your life is not an easy place for darkness to remain. You are carried by something higher, guarded by someone greater, and called into a future that has not been canceled by what you suffered. So go forward with a steadier heart. Let your voice sound different now. Let your prayers carry more confidence now. Let your choices reflect the truth that you are no longer standing under the same shadow you were when this began. Heaven saw your courage today. And because heaven saw it, heaven responded. Every attack lost its power the moment it failed to separate you from the hand of God. And that means what comes next is not ruled by fear, not authored by despair, and not owned by the opposition. What comes next belongs to the God who kept you, strengthened you, and now sends you forward with victory already sealed. As this message comes to rest, let your soul stay in the afterglow of what heaven has spoken. You do not need to rush away from this truth. Carry it gently into your day and into your night. Let it meet you in quiet moments when old fears try to return. Let it steady you when pressure rises again. Let it remind you that courage is never wasted when it is placed in the hands of God. You have not been abandoned in the battle. You have been seen, held, and strengthened through it. What came against you was real, but it was never greater than the faithfulness surrounding you. And now a new chapter begins. Not because every question has been answered, but because your spirit knows who walks with you. Stay close to that knowing. Protect your peace. Guard your focus, God. Keep your heart turned toward the Lord. The same God who carried you through this day will carry you through the next one too. And what heaven has begun in you will continue to grow, deepen, and shine.